Elected members, staff, members of the gallery, visitors, award recipients, you're all very welcome tonight to the council meeting for Tuesday the 22nd of August 2017. And just remind members of the public, if you haven't been here before, that the meeting is being recorded, both audio and video, and pops up on YouTube in a few days' time. I would like to acknowledge the land we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. I also read you the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties that are united for us, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Please be seated. Feel free to help yourself to a cup of tea or coffee over the side there. Then handed it in this chamber. Very welcome. Do we have any declaration by members of any conflicts of interest tonight in any of the matters? Nil will declare. On leave we have nil. Apologies we have from Councillor Tobacco and from Councillor Harris. And I have someone confirm the minutes for the ordinary meeting of Council for the 25th of July 2017. Councillor Lee, would you speak to it? Second. Councillor Barnett, would you speak to it? Any further debate? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Mayor's report is on pages 1 and 2. Any questions on the Mayor's report? No, someone have you move it as it's presented. Councillor Lee, would you speak to it? Deputy Mayor, seconded, would you speak to it? No. Any further debate? No in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Like popping out alligators there for seconds. Verbal reports from council representatives. Are there any verbal reports? Council reps and organisations. Okay. The petitions we have nil, deputations we have 2, and we have listed in the minutes Laurie Kozlovic, the presiding member of the Audit Committee. Laurie is an apology for tonight, but he has asked Corinne Garrett, who's also on the Audit Committee, to attend on Laurie's behalf. So I just invite Corinne to come forward to one of these 2 chairs up here. And we've got 5 minutes, and an additional mic. See, are we still standing because we will be changed that?
No, I don't think there's a need to stand for the presentation. Change it.
You changed that. All right. Sorry.
Hello, thanks.
So, a moment in time, we've decided we don't have to stand at council meetings anymore. It's the first time. Let's not dwell on how long it is. Mr. Garrett, if you could just, for the purposes of the minutes, state your name and address.
Corinne Garrett. I'm a member of the Audit Committee, independent member of the Audit Committee.
You've got 5 minutes.
I've got 5 minutes. I'll be really quick because I only found out yesterday that I was doing this. So basically, everyone on council would be aware that we've had an Audit Committee for a number of years. It's a legislative requirement, and we've got a terms of reference which gives us our roles of what we are supposed to be doing for council. Our main role, of course, is financial. So we look at the budget reviews, financial statements, long-term financial plan, and comment on those in relation to legislation and in relation to your strategic goals. We meet with the external and internal auditors and review those audits, and particularly look at any management letters that come from those, and any discussions of any actions, and oversee the internal audit program. We also look at the context that we are involved with this council, and so it's very important for us to have an understanding of your strategic plans, your economic plans, your various other plans that get presented to us, so we understand how your council's working, so we can get an understanding of what your main priorities are and the level of risk that might be inherent in any of your activities. We also look at any large projects. So we've recently had a look at the CLIP program and the Prudential report that came to the first part of that, so that we could consider whether you had covered off the risk areas that needed to be considered, whether there was anything else to think about, and whether the processes involved were sound. So we're just a bit of a board there that can have a look at those kind of things and go, look, have you thought of or the legislation says this, have you covered that? We make no decisions and we have no role in council making decisions. We'll make recommendations to council and council can do what they like with those. We don't have to worry about the politics. We only worry about the actual numbers and risk levels. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much what we do. We also look at other audits that go through, such as the WHS audits and the governance audits, so that we get a whole view of what your council's doing, the risk appetite and the risk scenario it's sitting in, and what your forward planning is. So are there any questions?
Yeah, happy to take questions from the members if there are any. And thank you for standing in for Laura. Any questions from the members? Oh, well, Councillor Barnett is on the audit committee, so and Talis is now, so you can ask questions about what Talis is doing there, Councillor Barnett.
Well, perhaps just I remind myself now I don't have to stand, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So thank you, Corinne, for doing that, and especially at a short moment's notice. As a former member there, it gives a very good overview, I think, of council's whole activities, especially as you mentioned in terms of this country. So just as a general observation, how would you say that we as a city are doing?
I'd have to say that I'm on 3 audit committees and I've been on this audit committee for a year and a bit. Yeah. I've really been impressed at the planning that goes into the projects, future planning, the links with the long-term financial plans. I've been quite impressed at the reports that come up and the depth of them from council staff. Your risk management is amazing. And so I've been really, really impressed, and I'm very comfortable at the way that council's going about things, the way that they're looking, both elected members and staff, the way they're looking at issues as they come up. And, I mean, you might be a small council, but you've got some big issues, and every council has issues that they need to worry about. And you're also sort of a growing council within the confines of your geographical area. So I've been pretty impressed with this council.
Thank you. And that was unreversed.
Sounds like a majority but I know. Any further questions? Thank you, Corinne, for coming all the way. And Corinne lives at Wollonga, so it's a great.
I was actually on my way from Wakefield Council tonight.
Right. I don't know why you do.
Now I'm on my way to Wollonga.
Thank you very much for your presentation tonight, and feel free to depart if you need to get home. Members, I particularly put forward item 13.1, which is related to the audit committee on the 7th of August. The minutes are there and recommendations on pages 4 and 5 of the agenda. Are there any questions about any of those items? Pretty straightforward. Someone happy to move items 1, 2 and 3?
Yes. I'm very happy to move those.
Okay. Wish to speak to it any further? No. Do I second it? Councillor Evans, wish to speak to it? Any further debate? All those in favour? Yes, carried unanimously. Our second deputy tonight is Fuzzy Trojan, from Co-Housing Association of South Australia. If you can come forward, Mr. Trojan.
Thank you, Mayor.
Have a seat. And for the purposes of the minutes, could you state your name and address?
Yes, Fuzzy Trojan, 7 Albion Street, Windsor Gardens.
You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. In 1973, together with 4 others, I set up the first co-housing project in the city of Adelaide on the corner of Angus and Crone Street, known as Elder Mews these days. It's still there, bluestone buildings with lots of nice trees all around them. And living in it was my first experience of co-housing, and I just got instantly hooked. I really enjoyed the extra dimension of the social side together with the physical. So ever since then, I've been really interested in the topic, and I've done lots of research, reading and study. I've visited co-housing projects throughout Australia and overseas, And I was a social researcher at one stage. I did studies for the Housing Trust, Jennings, Hooker Homes and others on how built form influences behaviour and social outcomes. So I was very attracted to that idea. If you know the long-running series Neighbours, it was set in a cul-de-sac. And the reason for doing that is that cul-de-sacs influence behaviour and create closer, tighter communities. In September 2016, that's last year recently, we formed the Co-Housing Association of South Australia, and it was launched in a small co-housing project I built with my own funds in Windsor Gardens, where I live now. The launch was attended by Zoe Bettison, the Minister for Social Housing, who did the opening. The Mayor of Port Adelaide was there, and the local councillors and quite a few other dignitaries. And that was the launching of an association, which I thought was a good vehicle for carrying this idea out into the community, because it's not very well known. So what is co-housing basically? It's confused with a lot of other definitions like cooperative housing and others, so it needs a bit of explanation. But in essence, co-housing combines two broad elements: the physical form and the social form. The standard developers concern themselves primarily with physical form. The co-housing developer or facilitator looks at the interaction of those two forms. And form influences social outcomes, as I said in the cul-de-sac example, but you can go a lot further and you can create cohesive communities that have common themes and that have many, many benefits. There are different forms of co-housing. You can't really define it too clearly, but probably the most dominant form, or the most spoken about in the textbooks, is around 25 houses that share certain common facilities. The most basic facilities shared are usually a community room and a kitchen. You can go to workshops, places for teenagers to practice their band music, rooms that can be rented out to visiting people and so on. So how much you include in shared facilities is up to the local community or the developer to do, to make a decision about that. And co-housing can be developer-led or citizen-led. You can get a group of people together who then create the whole project, or a developer can come forward and start the process going. Co-housing addresses all three of the triple bottom line benefits. Economically, it not always, but it can be more affordable. It can lower living costs, it can lower operating costs, and it can lower government support costs. I don't have time to go into how. Social benefits include better health outcomes, happier lives and intergenerational synergies, and in environmental terms, there are lower carbon footprint in construction and lower ongoing costs, lower transport costs, and less wasteful consumption habits amongst residents. So co-housing ticks every major box in both state and local government development plans. And it fits the coming future. And I think that's one of the more important elements of co-housing, that it creates much more resilient local communities. Council here, I'm asking Council to consider co-housing for the sites that it has under its control, particularly the Trambarn site, but it would be nice perhaps to do something here. My roles are to promote the concept and also to be a facilitator. So I'm available to work with council, developers and any others who are interested in this concept and want to support it. I've got a background that's relevant, and I've got a circulating document coming to you by email tomorrow that really sets this out in a little bit more detail. Not much you can say in 5 minutes. I'll have 21 seconds over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just say it right there. Do you have any questions for elected members? Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Percy. Yes, I think there are quite a few of us that are interested in different housing models. And you would be aware of the process whereby council will be putting out expressions of interest for that particular site. Would your without trying to put you on the spot or anything, but is your co-housing association thinking perhaps of putting in for an expression of interest?
The association itself is not a developer, but I'm interested as a facilitator being involved. I'm not a developer either, but I have special talents and skills in co-housing. So probably the best solution would be for me to work with a developer who is also interested. And my intention is to contact some of the people on the CBRE list.
Thanks.
Can I ask the opportunity to get into and be an inhabitant? How does that work? People buy in, do they rent? And if they buy in when they sell, how does all that work in terms of the broader marketplace, which has a very limited understanding of what a house is?
Do you want half an hour?
I've got about 30 seconds.
Look, there are many different financing models and ownership models. There's not one answer to that question. We're looking at another project which would be owned by a church, and they would sell rights of occupancy. So in some senses, that's like a retirement village. And in fact, retirement villages are co-housing projects, but I think of them as ghettos for the aged, and I wouldn't want to live in one. But to come back to your answer, I'm sorry, I hope I haven't offended anybody. I just think intergenerational communities are much healthier for everyone and provide lots of synergies between different ages. So no one answer, many different solutions. It can be run on a straight commercial model or any other model.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Any further questions?
Thank you. Can I just say a very quick one? I'm very familiar with cooperative housing and community housing, less so about co-housing. What happens the environment is very much dependent on people getting along with each other, facilities or close proximity. What happens when that breaks down?
This is the most asked question by those who have concerns. And my normal answer is, well, you don't have to get on with everybody. Who says you should be able to get on with everybody? Let's say you're in a community of 20 or so houses. You'll be close to some, you'll be grumpy with others. You know, it's a normal villagey style environment. So the design, the physical design is such that you lock your own door, you've got your own private space, and that's yours. Nobody else walks in unannounced, but you have access to common facilities that, in fact, have an interesting consequence that you can build smaller because you don't need that big living room. If you need that big living room, you go and book the big living room and do your party in there instead. And you can drop out a bedroom because you can put mum, when she comes to stay from Darwin, in the rental accommodation on site, if that's included. So you don't have to get on with everybody. You don't get on with people in neighbourhoods now. In fact, you've got great big fences all around you. Not only don't you get on, you don't get anywhere. You know, you're all isolated, and the consequences of social isolation are about the same as smoking on health, cancer rates and all the rest.
Sorry, just one more. So the model co-housing can work equally as well with houses with fences and apartments without fences.
You don't normally have houses with fences. Usually it's more of a village style where houses are more closely spaced and there's more access. But the other thing you can have is a very safe interior zone, free of cars, where children can run and visit each other. So there's kids that are raised in co-housing usually want to live in it later because they feel that warmth. That's the key, because the one thing to take away, the takeaway message is you're creating a cohesive social group, not just a bunch of people living in buildings. But it can be in a multi-storey building, like Sturt Street in the cities. There's co-housing in there, in multi-storey, or it can be on a farm property where everyone's got an acre of their own, or anything in between.
Thank you. Further questions? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been delightful to be here.
Thank you for coming. And if you're here to listen to that presentation but have to go, we fully understand that. We'll now get on with the business of the council meeting, starting with a motion of notice and several reports. But you're more than welcome to stay. We'll be here quite a while, I suspect. If you wish to leave right now, that's definitely okay with us. We'll carry on. Okay, the next item on the agenda, and thank you again for your presentation and the gallery members for your interest. All the best. And next item 9.1, is a motion on notice from Councillor Taylor Simmons on the process review and managing customer requests. So, Councillor Evans, if you could read out and discuss your motion on notice.
And are we standing, or is that?
No, you're not compelled to stand.
No.
But you can.
You can if you want to gravitas. No, that's fine. I'm happy to stay seated. Okay, so the motion on notice is the council investigate and subsequently present to a workshop within 4 months options available to streamline and improve the process through which elected members raise local service and maintenance requests and interface with administration during the resolution process. So I can speak to it.
Yes,
so we're about to embark on our community survey, and one of the things that I found really interesting when the community survey was done last time is that one of the questions is about our residents' reactions to dealing with us as elected members. So not only is there a question there about what your experience dealing with council, there's also one about what your experience dealing with elected members, and I found that really interesting. Because residents call us all for a range of different reasons, but one of them in particular at times is to deal with maintenance requests, something that's relatively straightforward and easy to be dealt with through a CRM, and there are the mechanisms available for those CRM requests. There's the Mobile Services app and there's the online portal, and that's certainly going to be improved. But it's something different when we as elected members are seeking to champion that service request on behalf of the resident. The tools that we have at our disposal at the moment don't really effectively deal with elected members or third parties lodging support service tickets on behalf of others. And that's where I think this process needs to be improved. So it's not that elected members, it's our job to necessarily get involved in the operations of fixing these requests, but it would be good to know how they're progressing, where they're up to, and when they're completed, to have an appreciation of the visibility of that, so we can call the resident who contacted us and say, hey, we think this problem is fixed, is that the case, and do you have any feedback for us? So it's how do we provide great service to our residents, and I think there's some space to look to improve the processes and the tools that we have at our disposal at the moment to achieve that. So that's why I'm putting this forward, not necessarily to suggest an outcome, but more or less to put it on the table and to see if we can look to get something moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Councillor Barnett, would you speak to it?
Yes, because this has been one of my hobby horse, so to speak, about improving over several years, actually improving our customer service. We're a customer service operation. I know we're at different points in dealing with some of these issues, and I know that we'll be getting a new website and that we'll have better a portal, I guess, and yeah. So, but again, we just wonder why elected members, it's important for us, but it's also important for any other member of our community to be able to have an easy way to access. So, if it helps that through this motion that we're going to get it highlighted for elected members being able to do it more easily, then hopefully that will lead to us having a much more improved response to whoever our customers are. So I'm happy to support it at the moment because I can see it could lead to other benefits for all of us who want to raise matters with our administration.
Thank you. Any further debate?
Just briefly to thank Councillor Evans for bringing this to Council. It's one that I think, as Councillor indicated, has been going on for some years. I think it'd be a very easy report to send back because I don't think we can do. I think it'd be easy to do better. Maybe would be a better way of phrasing that. It'd be easier to do better in terms of the way we collate this information and also feed back to the customer or the client or the resident or the elected member about what's going on. We've been talking about this for a long time. I think it's really good that we brought it to a head in this way. And not that I would, but if I was to make an amendment, I'd perhaps say 2 months rather than 4, but that's up to others if they wanted to reduce that timeline. I think 4 months is a long time. That'll take us into next year, basically, so it'd be good to see that. I still could make an amendment. Because I'm still
I still have time.
I'm sorry, sitting down is just confusing me. I think I'll stand up. So I might suggest that the amendment be 2 months. Mr. Mayor.
Can I just seek wise counsel from
Yes,
my
that would be good.
right-hand seat?
It's dead on 3.
Is that achievable? Is the question?
Well, I was just going to check.
So 3 months. Yeah. So the advice I'm getting is there's a workshop scheduled for November, so 3 months would work. 2 months seems a little tight.
I would be more than happy for them to 3 months or
Yes, I'll just check with the mover and seconder. They seem amenable to that. Just equally to the need to change 2 to 3. All those in favour of that change? That's 4 to 3. Thank you. And that's just changed from 4 to 3. And you still have another minute or two.
I'll just say the motion has been significantly improved by that. But no, seriously, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Any further debate inside? As mover, Councillor Evans, you need to sum up. Right. Ends debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Okay, questions with notice. There are nil. Questions without notice. Are there any? Right. In the case, we'll move on to the protocol. We have had a discussion about tweaking the protocol, but that new agenda hasn't come before me yet, so we'll run on the same basis as we have on previous meetings. We have already pulled forward item 13.1 doing that matter. So I'll call these over, and if anybody wishes to pull out reports, I have some notice to pull out, but let you know. So item 13.2, minutes of the Strategic Planning and Development Policies Committee meeting held on 9th of August. Does anybody wish to pull that item? Right. I will pull out item 15.1, the Community Hub Library Innovation Centre. A quick update as we have a short presentation to start and a discussion. Item 16.1, the Excellence in Urban Design Award. Does anybody wish to pull that? No. 18.1, the appointment of Council Assessment Panel. We need to withdraw that. We have a spot there. Finance interest in that. The 19.1, the Capital and Operational Projects Progress Report. I always pull out without questions, so that's out. The fourth budget review on pages 161 to 162. That's a recommendation. Does anybody wish to pull out that one? Right. 19.3, the Community Land Management Plan adoption is being withdrawn because there's a slight amendment to the recommendation. The next item, 19.4, the Open Space Strategy Report, is also being withdrawn because there's an alternate recommendation. 19.5, the Draft Environmental Action Plan for Community Consultations, if we wish to withdraw that. 19.6, the Eastern Regional Alliance ERA Governance Framework Review, page 317. Anybody wish to withdraw that one? 19.7, the Local Government Finance Authority Annual General Meeting, page 388. Anybody wish to withdraw that one? 19.8, Community Engagement, Electrification of the Railway Line along Port Terrace. I will withdraw that one. And 19.9, the Waste Tender Update. Does anybody wish to withdraw that? We'll seek a mover for items 13.2, 16.1, 19.2, 19.5, 19.6, 19.7, and 19.9.
So
I'll take the mover, and I'll take Councillor Lee as the seconder. There's no debate on items moved on block. All those in favour? Against, it's moved. Carried. Okay, so we'll move then to the first item withdrawn, which is the item 15.1, Community Hub Library and Innovation Centre, the update, recommendations on page 27. You'll see there's been a fair bit of action there. First of all, are there any questions on the report as presented? No being the case, so then hand over to you read it all, and I'll hand over to the staff for a brief presentation.
to the Chair, I'd like to call forward Chris Newby, the project lead, to present.
He anticipated that, he was moving before you called him. It's amazing.
There's a presentation going on the screen.
And it would be wise to suspend any proceedings. I think we might be good time, so let's suspend them until 8 p.m. So otherwise, in favour of suspending any proceedings, or it's against us suspending until. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Sorry, I do have a hint of a cold, but you should be sitting at a safe distance from me. And Jazz, in the absence of a clicker, I'll raise my clicker pen and magically move the slides forward. Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to talk to Council this evening. We've received a very comprehensive report from Brown Falconer, Snow Hatter and Hudson House on the site analysis, I guess the spatial needs analysis, leading to the site required for our new Community Hub, Library and Innovation Centre integrated with the new Civic Centre. And subsequent to that, that informed the extent of site to be released to the market. So tonight is a good opportunity to touch base with Council, talk through parts of that report that are worth dwelling on and reflecting on, and also talking about the timeline for the delivery of the project over the next coming months. There's some exciting times ahead as we move into the really interesting part. Now that we have a site, we have the size of a site, we have a general scale and footprint of the building, and we've got some ideas about how that might take shape in the future. We can now move into that concept design stage following the appointment of architects. So I'll talk briefly through that, and we'll pick up on some salient points coming out of, I guess, the timeline in the immediate future, and also the elements that Brown Falconer reports. So, as you would have read in the papers, there's been a lot of work done on the accommodation requirements and the benefits of integrating the Community Hub, Library and Innovation Centre with the Civic Centre, create Civic 128, as it was known through the course of that process. There's been a very detailed breakdown of the component areas that make up each of the discrete spaces, and then the relationships between those. And some very preliminary number crunching has been done to ensure that the spatial needs of the organisation and for the community facility will be accommodated within or around about the budget that has been allocated for the design and construction. So there's been some assumptions made in terms of future organisational needs, in terms of the number of staff. There's been some discussion at the executive and management team level about service delivery in the future and what it might mean for shifting staff into perhaps a different, more collaborative space for working. The term hot desking has been raised, and it is a concept that's being explored and can be explored further. One of the recurring themes throughout all of the discussion has been flexibility of space and flexibility of design. So this building will be future-proof. We won't be looking at, in 10 years' time, whether we actually need to do another building. Even if circumstances change significantly, this will be a building for the future and that can be adapted to suit alternate uses. The spatial requirements are still a significantly larger Thomas Street Centre, with a better expression, while maintaining a civic centre similar in size to what we have now. Integrating a refurbishment of the town hall as well has been allocated as part of the future project and future concept design so that we can reinvigorate that space and integrate it better into the new centre. Coming out of that was it's one of the drivers that developers look at primarily, and that our council assessment panel will be looking at with some keen interest, is the number of car parks provided on site. It can be the make or break of any development proposal. What Brown Falconer have done in being guided through the possible spatial layout is explored the opportunity across the existing car park at the rear on the western side to accommodate a double-deck car park that provide, in combination with a basement level or undercroft as part of New Civic 128, a total of 120 car parks. So 31 on site and 89 shared car parking spaces at the rear, while still providing a rear access to the new allotment that's been released for expressions of interest. Early feedback from CBRE, or Marketing the Site for us, suggests that Council got it right in terms of determining the size of that site that's been released. There's been some really strong interest from some very good developers whose visions perhaps align quite well with Council's almost unspoken vision for what we might want to see on that site. I'll move on. I guess very briefly, I'll just touch on, you can see on the screen the extent of the site for Civic 128 bounded in green. It's that sort of, it's the largest portion just to the north and west of the town hall. You can see that the town hall is off limits. We're not demolishing the town hall. There's been an allocation for refurbishment so that we can improve the facilities within that. But our focus for Civic 128, I guess the massing and the concepts that are presented in the Brown Falconer report cover that site. And the site bounded in red, cutting its way through the existing Civic Centre building. That's the site that has been released to market with POIs closing this Thursday. Let's just into the next slide. So, before we jump into the concepts, were there any questions in relation to site areas?
Yes, with parking, egress and ingress, so will that be still from Old Street and Vine Street and through the lane?
That certainly is the intention, to retain that access, that permeability, both for vehicles and for pedestrians, and the access to Honeysuckle Lane at the rear, as well as reloading access to both the Civic 128 site and the private development site. Which leads us to concept option one. So two options were arrived at based on the site area and the spatial needs for the future Civic. The first concept locates all of our accommodation requirements within a 4-storey rectangular building that's facing Prospect Road and the car parking to the rear and below the building. This provides an opportunity for a public plaza component just to the southwest corner that extends to the existing Vine Street plaza. So there's an opportunity there to reactivate that corner. We've made a number of efforts over the years to inject some life and some vibrancy into that area. With varying degrees of success. It certainly is a much appreciated space. So the 4-storey concept provides that opportunity to reinvigorate that. But based on based on the spatial needs analysis and the overall floor area itself, the entire 4th level may not be required, depending on how the concept design pans out. So that's a brief overview of concept option one.
Perhaps just also to point out, it doesn't need to come as far as the reading shape thing, which is the extent of the community hall. It doesn't need to take up the full extent. It doesn't need to come behind the town hall if we want it to be full stories. Yeah.
So we have spare land. And when we build it, what it costs, of course. So this is scoped to, you've seen a report, to meet our budget of 12 million.
Option 2 is something that picks up on that notion that there is an opportunity to utilise that vacant space to the rear of the town hall for a potentially a 1 to 2 storey development, either as part of Civic 128 or by the private sector, and to step the top of the building away from the rear of the site, which certainly resonates with the approach, the successful approach that we've seen in some circumstances at the interface between the urban corridor zone and the residential zone to the rear, to minimise that building mass. So that may be something that is attractive in terms of moving forward and refining the brief to the architect for the concept plan design. Naturally, the further you move away from a rectangular box, the more inherently expensive it is to create that volume of space, and that's before you apply the architectural treatments to make it a more attractive building. So there may be some merit in pausing at this point to get the opinion of elected members on which of these two options are preferred or which really resonate with you, or whether there's potential scope for the challenge to be put to the appointed architect to come up with a third spatial option, bearing in mind time and cost associated with redefining the scope of the project. We have anyone who would like to lead off?
Sorry, Chris, to stop people thinking. This looks to me as if the grading, again, doesn't come to full depth of what we could do. And nor does it look like it's hard against the back of the town hall structure. So there's a couple of green blocks in there, like the landscape. Is that how you see it?
That is how I see it. So that potentially provides that flexibility of opportunity where you could retain an access if the two-storey component was for a private sector developer or leased by council for a retail cafe component, then you could still retain a connection into the main building via that sheltered walkway between the town hall and between the retail offering, which could become quite a special space and really have a sense of arrival to the new facility. Alternatively, you could seek to make it up directly to the rear of the town hall building, but then you need to treat delicately with that local heritage interface. It's a challenge for the architects.
How much land, Chris, is left behind the town hall structure up to where the car park needs to be? You know how big it is?
I don't have the figure in front of me. Off the top of my head, it's in the order of 400, 450 square metres.
Open the batting.
Right, let's hope it's a 6. Yeah, I think I'm a bit more in favour of this concept, particularly as it doesn't have the overpowering sort of block for our residential interface. I guess I would like to go back to how much of we don't have much outdoor, we've just got another report saying how far down we are on open space and all that. And, my mind was thinking that if we didn't have the lower block, we could have more of a village green, more of an open, some space that, we could have outdoor theatre, outdoor events happening and more, because even with Vine Street Plaza, unless we're going to do something a bit more with that, it is very limited in what open space we have. So I would see there could be a bit more of an opportunity, a bit more of a greening and an environmental outlook to it, instead of just looking out on other buildings and car parks.
So a couple of things, Chris. First of all, a comment about the drawing. It's detail about the drawing, but one of the criticisms that Dan had a couple of years ago of developers who come along is showing the design but not showing what's around it. So I've got a question about where the property is behind along Patch Lane on the street where they actually come up to. That's a comment, just for you to take on those. Anything else, because it'd be useful to know exactly where the boundary is. So are those trees our existing trees in the car park? I presume they are.
I think they're fake trees. That shaded line is, I think, self-concept of ramp, and that shaded line is the side of the upstairs car park. Right. So the boundary line is about here. Right. First house is somewhere here.
So the boundary line is
assume that that's the boundary line somewhere in that shaded line.
Grey shadow.
Yeah.
Second comment is that because we don't know yet what's going to happen north to the side, that's a hard one because we can't wait until they make a decision on it until we decide what's going to happen on that side. But stepping down means we lose a bit, I think, in terms of the space between the back of the town hall and the development. Sorry. How many metres are you talking about there?
400-ish. I'd say it's probably close to 300.
So more point to point, so point from the back of the hall to the development. It looks like you've got trees in there, which I think it's about 15 metres. 15 metres.
What's wide or long?
Sorry, 15 deep from east to west, so from the back of the town hall building to the car park.
From the back of the town hall building to our proposed building on site. On the next slide.
There's one leaving, 3 metres.
3 metres. Yeah. So it's not usable space is my point. So if we just go back to the next slide. So presumably there are no trees as there. It's
really trying to conceptually show not building hard up against the town hall for respect of its heritage external facade.
3 metres, I'm not sure. It's a little odd. So my third question really is about what are you wanting from us tonight? Is this just comment, but respecting that our timeline is an issue at the moment, we need to make sure we have things on track when we need to. What exactly are you asking from us tonight?
I think the preference would be, given that we've been presented with 2 options by the architects engaged to do the spatial needs analysis, it would be an advantage acknowledging the timelines and the desire for a brief to be as, concise and accurate as possible, to have some indication from council as to the preferred direction, which option sits better without going through the concept design and potentially presenting a number of different concept design options to council, because each one of those takes time and resources and funding to develop to fruition. So on this basis, is this enough information to indicate which option would be preferred? And we've heard something from Christina about the potential for a greater allocation of open space as a result of going the 4-storey route.
So, last question. The design that's up there now, that only gives us common space or outdoor space in Vine Street Plaza. It totally removes any capacity to do anything behind the town halls here. So, we go from an L shape to an I shape.
Yeah, essentially, this diagram would lose the table tennis table and piano area from what we currently have. Absolutely, and the beauty of this model is it creates opportunity for roof deck spaces which may or may not be green publicly accessible spaces, whilst losing some softening that impact to the residential zone.
That's probably, probably best to not pay too much attention to the exact shape and form. There's a couple of principles at play. One is we can fit in a simple rectangular building that fronts Prospect Road and has a western interface, as per the previous slide, and frees up 350 square metres for us to do something later on, or for us to sell for the going rate that would be 700,000, 800,000. This one here spreads us out, and I think the reason that behind the town hall is skinnier than it needs to be is because we sort of said we want to have that forced tourism at the front on Prospect Road to sort of show the community that this is the sort of form we're looking for. But we could actually drop the whole thing to 3 levels and spread the back of it out a bit more. So it's not a skinny thing behind the town hall, it actually takes up all that space between the town hall and the car park. So we have 3 bigger L-shaped floors rather than 4 floors like this that's stagnant. There are inefficiencies in the shape like this and the staggering, because the lifts can only be at the highest bit. Like all that. Don't worry so much about that. I think the pair, for instance, with like some sort of feedback about whether you're particularly tied to one outcome or another, and recognising each has opportunities for us. And if we're not particularly wedded one way or the other, this will simply become a task for the architect when they come on board to help us resolve.
I think that's what I'm struggling with, because we could say whatever shape we like, but it's about how the architect uses the space for us. So I'm kind of reluctant to say option 1 or option 2. I just think that's what we need for the architects for, is to show us space with that land. And I know that's difficult because we don't. It's not stating what is preference. But my preference is the architect to spend their money and design space for us.
Have we got any Lego around the place? Because I'm a visual guy and I'm struggling to work out how I feel about this without a little bit of context, and being presented with these 2 options and asking for our opinion or some input, I'm finding it quite difficult to be able to stand there and look at something and go, right, well, let's take that off and see what we feel and put that back on. And to me, I mean, maybe that's just that might, and I'm not suggesting Lego. I'm happy for any building block generic chairs and Lego or anything like that. Yeah. I reckon if we, I wouldn't think we'd need to go to the extent of some 3D modelling type stuff, although we could. But some way of having a play and getting a sense of how we might feel. We might have to shrink ourselves down to that size to get a sense of how we might feel if it was built. But I think I'm not sure whether that's possible to have a bit of play around with it.
Cardboard.
Yeah, I'm sort of perplexed in 2 avenues. One, we had a no workshop last week. We all got the week off, and I thought this would have been sort of a perfect thing to bring to a workshop, and I'm surprised we've got it here with us tonight. To be honest, neither option gives me the fizz. I don't know. I want to set the music better. Yeah. The James May fizz, but you have to be top gear fans to understand that. I don't, nothing, it's not inspiring me, neither is inspiring me at the moment. I think I need a little bit more skin on the bones of it to kind of see what it can be. I mean, at the face of it, I kind of like the idea of having some open space behind there that we could do something with, and maybe a performance space or an outdoor maker space or something like that to the channel council at the backer. But once again, there's so many things that brings with it. We lose floor space. So I don't know. I'm not particularly happy to make any decisions.
That's good.
Yeah, so I guess keen to take the advice of the architect more so. Similar to the other views we've heard tonight, there's not one that stands out to me as a definite yes or a definite no. The concept of doing something on the roof is interesting. That's a bit of a question mark. So the idea that you might be able to take a book upstairs and sit down and read it, or that there's a pleasant space where you can have open space, but it's just open space in new form. We saw that work quite well in some of the libraries that we visited. So that concept is intriguing to find out some more. But in terms of the shape that the building takes, yeah, it's something that I wouldn't have a strong view on. Can you see what the architects come back to us with?
We just go back to the previous slide. And I think that those comments are all perfectly valid, and I'm very comfortable with that because it's not straightforward. There's a lot of design work to go. What strikes me though is a few things that we've said that we want to do. One is have a presence on the street. So I think we've got some interest in having a building of some scale on the street, whereas we could have a 3-story one. I personally think, not heard, I think that we'd like to say, well, let's have a more substantial building. Out the back, we don't need all the space out the back. There's a real risk to have been building out a long time. If you draw, bigger than you need, you fill up the space, you get the bill, it's too much money, you're all weeping, and you go and hit the ratepayer up for some more money to solve it. You're better off starting small, modest, and if you can't fit everything in, just push the bubble out a little bit and then justify it to yourselves. It's better to start that way than the other way. And the team have done a great job at trimming every square metre they can find out of this, not because they want their space, but because it's got to fit the budget. That's what they've done. And then I started thinking, well, that's we don't need all that space. Not only don't we need a bit behind the town hall, we don't need all the bit going back to the car park. And if we build it, it'll cost us more money. The back of this building could have quite an interesting shape to it. It could have the outdoor space. It could have a raked wall that has the maker space inside, that little bit of an atrium field so you can take the customers. It could do quite a bit. This is 20 metres across, and that's 4 levels high. It's quite a really sensational western facade. Admittedly, it's west, okay, so there are some environmental considerations. Then I started thinking about, if we didn't need that space behind the town hall, what would somebody else do with that, and what would we encourage to happen in that space? And that's a bit of thinking I still haven't concluded, but it started opening up other doorways in my mind as to us talking about making the village heart a more vibrant place. And we have to drive all of that, or should we get out of the way of other people doing that and use their money to achieve it? And to me, that's an interesting little parcel of land. It's a good size for a small, say, apartment building. It's a good size for a car park in the basement, maybe a restaurant in front of that, some apartments above, or a bit of commercial. It's a good size for a couple of other things to happen. It's not such a big spend for somebody to do. And it'll be in close association to a plaza, cafes and the like. And I basically thought, I'd like to explore that a bit more. I don't know where that would lead. But the other joy of having someone else do it is that we get to sell the land to them. So there's a kind of it could be a win-win there. And I think the comments tonight are all perfectly valid. It is too early to make this decision. What I think Chris and the team are looking for is some feedback about whether people felt strongly one way or the other. I have heard people do feel strongly one way or the other. And I think it's a delicious opportunity to have. And I really like the idea of Matt's idea of doing some modelling. Be it whatever. Yeah, you can do it in these sorts of ways.
Yeah, it concerns me that we're still just looking at blocks of buildings. There's nothing inspiring at all about.
So let's talk about next steps, Chris.
Look, it looks like Gulag 17 and a bit.
Yeah, that's right. The developer gets a nice colour. It's red though. We just need to extend the suspension of the proceedings. I think we're going to run out. So take it to 8:15. All those in favour? Yes, Gary, thanks. Chris.
So the next steps, we've released a brief to the architects, a brief to 12 architects, architecture firms who we think have the necessary skills, experience, expertise and capacity to deliver this project. There's quite a buzz out there as a result, with a number of them very keen to get involved. The EOIs close next Monday for subsequent report and recommendation to council.
EOI on the land or the architect? Sorry, EOI.
The EOI on Prospect Road is held on the subsequent slide, that closes this Thursday. The intention is to have some fairly well-considered concept plans workshopped with elected members, potentially modelled, Play-Doh'd and Lego'd prior to council consideration, a special meeting in September. What we're doing is working to a compressed timeline so that we can ensure that we actually meet that end date for delivery of August 2019. Following endorsement of the concept plan with notification, we'll lodge the application. We've received advice, just verbal advice at this stage from the Development Assessment Commission, or DIPTI, that while we may request that the Minister appoint the DAC as the relevant authority, the Minister and DIPTI are of the opinion that Council's independent Council Assessment Panel has the capacity to consider, assess and potentially approve our own development application for this site. The intention is that the public notification and community consultation processes will align with the consideration of the concept plan by the Council Assessment Panel in December 2017, ready for stage 1 approval for the demolition of the existing site to occur in February of next year following terrific prospects. So as a brief snapshot in terms of the architect and project manager, that is the brief, that is the timeline that we have provided them, and that they so far feel confident that they'll be able to meet. It does mean some decisions need to be made.
Sorry, Chris, just a quick question. Do we have the option to not send it to the CAP, but to send it to the DAC?
Yes, we can send it to the DAC. We can request that the DAC assess it, but they don't have to assess it. It would be at the discretion of the Minister. It would only be if it was more than 4 stories in height. That's for the Coordinator General, so to be called in, and that's again a request to the Minister for the Coordinator General. So early indications are that our assessment panel will be assessing the proposal.
So quicker.
And bear in mind that under the new legislation, it's significantly more independent, I guess, now than it will be.
Is it possible can you utilise the government architect regardless of whether it's DAC?
It can be requested, but there's no legislated referral other than if it's over 4 stories in height.
We can request it, that's at their discretion as to whether they accept that request. I think we probably could get them to accept it, particularly if SCAF, not that, refer it back to us and we could say, well, actually, we'd like to read comfort by having someone objectively review the design. I think they would probably write a letter to AGASA, who is not SCAF, and say, we think you should get involved. I think that would be a good benefit. Again, it does add time, so long as
Would they charge us for that? Seeing the
That's a good
Minister
question.
hasn't.
I know that they haven't been so far, but maybe there's a new project.
You need to clarify that.
Yes.
Because if they're not requesting it, and the Minister's not, and it's us, well then they might say, oh, we can pay for it.
Chris, anything more on this slide?
No, just a brief mention that we've also released a call for expressions of interest for project manager to be appointed to work alongside the architect to ensure that the timelines are met. And their focus is on the construction, management and delivery of the project. So as a multifaceted program for council services to the future, it's timely that a project manager who's skilled in construction be appointed to oversee the project to ensure that it's delivered on time.
And just to note on here, there's a couple of special meetings that you think we're going to need to do in September for appointing the designer, and November for approving concept plans, and maybe others.
So as mentioned, as you would have seen the sign out the front, CBRE have been calling for expressions of interest. Prospect Road, it's been a very strong level of interest in what is, the market is still bubbling along. There's just, in CBRE's words, there's fewer players on the scene, fewer tyre kickers, and we're getting real expressions of interest from real developers who have real plans for the future of that site and will be able to deliver it, rather than those who are thinking, maybe I get into this developing game and take a punt on this site. So we're looking forward to Thursday afternoon, 4 o'clock, when the EOIs officially close. CBRE package up some documents for consideration and assessment to be undertaken prior to that being brought to council for further consideration. Part of the EOI process is a best and final offer or request for proposal process, where we do have the ability to pick the top 4 or 5, or 2 or 3, and go back to them and saying, is that the best and final offer, and then have the best possible outcome outlined and in contract form for council consideration.
And who's the people thinking of that? So,
yes.
I think it's a good question. I probably haven't thought that through. The PEG's certainly the first filter, but I suspect we're going to get back a whole pile of interesting concepts about what they want to do. And I think it would be wise to have all of council look at that in terms of at least providing some direction back to PEG and back to the staff as to what we're more comfortable with and less comfortable with. I don't want to make that decision on my own. And I agree with the two of us is probably, we would like to have a great deal of comfort about the 2 or 3 that we go down the next path with. So Chris, let's take on the question and work out how to schedule that. Chris?
This is perhaps going to be no way around it, but we're going to have most probably quite extended building going on quite possibly a few years, because we'll be having ours and then whatever happens with the other developers. So perhaps we need to have a bit of thinking around that as well.
That's a good suggestion and something that has been discussed internally around the construction management plan and dealing with the external site associated with that, when this site as well as the adjoining site as well as the rear of this property become building sites, and what that means in terms of that access that you raised earlier and Olive to Vine Street and the potential impact of the reduction in car parking availability in the local area. So while Council Civic Centre may relocate and reduce the car parking demand, there'll still be demand that's generated through the activities within the village hub to monitor that activity and perhaps provide an opportunity for the impacts of that to be minimised.
Because Prospect Road's narrow enough as it is, and if it's almost one lane completely closed off quite some year or more. So
yeah, as you see, it's on the site.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Chris?
Well, that pretty much covers off Prospect Road. Main North Road is scheduled for release in early September. The positive benefit around staggering the release of the sites is that some who have their interest has been piqued, perhaps, through the Prospect Road opportunity. They've certainly expressed strong interest in Johns Road and Main North Road when that is released. Had a look at this site because of their existing relationship with CBRE and their history of developing, and they've looked at this site and CBRE have been able to point to Johns Road, Main North Road, and say, keep your eyes peeled because we will contact you in the future concerning another opportunity that the council will be releasing. So they're finalising that material, scheduled for release in early September. There's also been discussion around hosting an information session for developers and community members post-release, so that those who expressed an interest and want to get greater insight into the history of the site and the opportunities of the site, and perhaps for some of these community groups or community-minded individuals to make connections with those people who are interested in developing the site, that could be a catalyst for that to occur.
Right. So just in summary from Peg's point of view, things are going to start to move much quicker now in terms of interface with the members, and you'll start seeing requests for appointment of consultants, for offers for the land, for a request to proceed with the sale process, for concept designs to be discussed, for concept designs to be approved, cost plans to be approved, for decision makers to move on, and large decisions to be made. So I'll hopefully work with Kate and the team to make us as informed as we can be to make those decisions as good as they can possibly be. But just flagging, things will start to move fairly quickly, and we'll start to see some special meetings to make sure that we're not tied down by the month council meeting time. No, you're right for that, but just any final questions at all? If not, thank you, Chris. We'll bring us back into session. And note we're on item 15.1, the project update on the administration. We have somebody who should do the report as yeah, you speak to it.
Look, just to thank staff again for some really good work. This is moving at a very fast rate of pace. It's probably going to move a lot faster in these couple of months, but just acknowledge that word. I think it must have been said otherwise.
Okay, thank you. I second that. Councillor Larwood, would you speak to it all?
Just briefly, again, thanks for the work that Council's doing. I think it's interesting to consider how we can be equipped with information as elected members to disseminate out into the community. I know there's a website, that's one tool, but if there's an opportunity to develop a sort of comms plan around the actions in the movement and the decisions and the progress that we could potentially have as a cheat sheet on hand, because we get asked, from the question we get asked most. So just pushing people to a website might not be satisfactory, so I'd ask you guys to consider something like that. And also Lego. Generic name building block.
Thank you. Just because you're not standing doesn't mean you can suddenly turn into it.
See what happens.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. Councillor Larwood. Any further debate? I would have been the case due to someone opposing direction speech to step your head.
I'll stand up. No, thank you.
That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Unanimously. Thank you. Next item in Thorn was item 18.1, the appointment of the Council Assessment Panel. And Councillor Barnett has been part of that independent panel. And we do have a slightly revised recommendation, so I'll just ask the Director to update us on why that is yellow on the screen and change names.
Certainly, and through the Chair, as recently as this afternoon, we had one of the
proposed appointee to the current member of the DMP withdraw. His circumstances have changed in recent times, and he is elected to withdraw. Given his name was published in the agenda, we've then quickly reconvened the selection group, as was pointed out in item 6 of the recommendation, and Mr. Rob Gaggetti, who was originally suggested as a deputy member, has very similar skill sets to the person who has withdrawn from the race, which was Darren Starr. Very good local government planning and private sector skills to sort of cover that specific skill set of Darren Starr. So we've suggested that Rob Gaggetti be added to the list of appointees under item 4. And Council, as you have read through the report, has the option of creating deputy members, otherwise known as proxies, but under the PDI Act referred to as deputies. And essentially, given we had 9 very good candidates that we interviewed, all of which could perform very well in the role, the next person in line we thought was absolutely worthy of being deputy, and therefore worth putting on under item 5.
Okay, thank you for the update. That's what's before you, and we also have a suggestion from the staff, a recommendation from the staff, that we have a deputy elected member appointed, and we need, if you agree, we need a nomination for that. Without seeming to be too direct, because there's only 5, we're just concerned that if we lost 1 or 2, we'd have a 3. So that's why the staff are recommending deputies. We have 1 elected member, and we figured that we'd appreciate that position being filled if the first one was, say, for instance, away on holidays. So any questions about what's before you, firstly? If that's the case, thank you. Do we have any nominations for the deputy elected member position? Councillor, deputy member.
I would like to nominate Councillor Lee for that position, please.
Ben, having loved that idea, I think you should.
Well, I would.
And well, we should check those whether
Councillor Lee wants to set that
Okay.
Sounds like you stood up.
See, I'm not heard that expression here before. If we were still standing,
I accept that nomination. We may need to review the standing bit.
maybe a
I
half.
accept that nomination. Can you tell me standing again?
I thought we could. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lee. Do we have any further nominations for that deputy position? Well, there being no further nominations, I'll take the liberty of pulling it out with Councillor Lee. And if somebody wish to move all those recommendations, Councillor Barnett.
Yes, do so. And our director summed up really the process very nicely. It's actually,
You can stand. You
hard, so to speak. I mean, well, I've been doing it for about, 26 years. Anyway, yeah, I think it was actually a difficult task from the short list. We were very well, so many excellent candidates, but we did make a decision, and a lot of it was based on the what sort of capacities did we want our panel to have, and particularly going into almost a new era in the sense that our design area. And so we wanted to make sure that we covered certain categories within that. So I think we've done that quite well. We've got, in a sense, some new blood as well as we were very much wanting to have some degree of continuance, of a sense of history, but also with a view to what are our future needs for us, for this, at least for the next 2 years, the life of this new CAP, as we have to call them now. So we and also I think the thinking was Councillor Tobacco had already indicated, and Councillor Lee, I think having our 2 members continuing on will give us a very good sense of, of that continuance as well. So I commend the recommendation to the elected members.
Thank you. Will I second that? Deputy Mayor, Group, wish to speak to it?
No. Councillor Barnett covered all the main points.
Thank you. Any further debate? I conclude the debate. All those in favour? This is carried unanimously. Right. Next item withdrawn was 19.3, the community land plan adoption. Sorry, 19.1. The Capital Works and Operational Projects Progress Report. Thank you for your dedication and interest tonight.
And our interest.
I didn't stand before the little quips like that. And I appreciate it. 19.1, it's important in case people have any questions about the end of year report. And we'll take brief questions, then I'll ask them to move, obviously. Councillor Evans.
So I've got three brief questions, and I'm on page 159, item 43, just in terms of what's happening with the R.M. Williams site, so the Prospect Road, Percy Street precinct. There was talk on that several months ago at the beginning of the year. It seems to have gone cold a bit. Is there anything beyond the commentary there?
I'm happy to assistance from my staff. There have been discussions undertaken with R.M. Williams, so that occurred last month. So we are still pursuing some negotiations with them around a contribution to Percy Street and some of those design concepts. The issues in relation to Prospect Road, we're still currently working through design concept related to particularly the footpath area adjacent to the retail outlets on Prospect Road. You'll note when you drive down there that portion hasn't yet been constructed. So we are still working on some concept plans in respect to that, and expect to be bringing that to council through a workshop on the 1st of September to give you an update in terms of some ideas. First workshop in September.
So just point number 2, which was the one directly below, so that was item 21, just in terms of Prospect Road, so Gordon Road to Regency Road, section that's just, I guess, in the process of being completed now. Do we have any indication on when all that footpath work's going to finish? I guess it's just quite disruptive at the moment.
Yeah, through the chair. So at the moment what we've got is obviously finalising the last little bit in terms of inclement weather that's been played part of the last couple of weeks. But at this stage it's tracking well, and all of those works outside of the area that Kate talked about, CEO talked about, should be completed by the end of September.
Okay, so end of September it should be. Yeah, cool. Fantastic. So the third one was just the urban green corridor. So talking about negotiations with the Railway Society and that they, I guess, stalled somewhat. Has there been any progress with talking with the Railway Society about what can happen on connecting those three sites, so Prospect Estate, the Railway Yard, I think Irish Harp Reserve?
Yeah, there has been some discussions with the Railway Society. Discussions were had a month ago. I'm not sure on the progress in terms of where that's at. I'm happy to provide some information further.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, thank you.
I can let you know they've written to me via a minister expressing a lot of discomfort. So around changes and impacts. So it's still a sensitive issue to them. I don't know why it came by a minister, but somebody must have known somebody else. Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor.
Just one question. Page 156 in relation to Draw Road street lighting. The target, sorry, the actual was 0%. I can't find that $20,000 carried forward or anywhere else in the budgetary bit. I'm just wondering whether that's going to be carried forward or not.
Director.
Through the chair, at the moment it hasn't been planned to be carried forward. So there will be a report to council in September, basically talking about the reason why the project was stopped is because the courts has come back to be a lot more larger than what the budget has catered for. So that is one of the reasons why it hasn't been proceeded. So there will be a report to September Council seeking council's direction as to how we will proceed with this.
Sorry, if I just ask some question. So the work was just the design. So the design came over budget.
That's right.
The quote for design.
That's correct.
So if I'm just a bit confused why it's not somewhere in the budget review though, because if we decide we want to continue with it, it hasn't been carried forward. I presume you've done soft close and it'll be hard close between now and September. What do we do?
Through the chair, we've only become aware of that during this last couple of weeks when I realized that that project hasn't actually proceeded without a budget review. So as a result, consulting to Kate, we put a report to council basically if we were to seek any additional fund, we will come through a council report. So through the budget review, there are also some savings that we have through some operating project and capital project and council.
Okay, so it sounds like we're a live issue.
And also impact on the surplus. We spent it surplus last year, but we spent this year's on surplus last year.
At the moment, it hasn't impacted as carried.
Sorry, just to clarify, we haven't committed anything, so it can't be counted as work in progress.
That's correct. Nothing has been committed.
So we either have to relaunch that budget
Correct.
this financial year.
That is the reason why we come back to September Council for Council's direction before we commit anything or before we spend.
Anything further there, Nick?
No, that's all.
Any other brief questions? If not, I'll ask someone to move the note the report. Then we'll watch in. Councillor Evans, brief perspective at all? No. Okay. Do I have a second? If you need respect to it, any further debate? All right, that ends debate. Wasn't much of it. All those in favour? Yes, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item withdrawn, track 19.3, the community land plan adoption, and it's withdrawn because there's an amendment. There's been a bit of correspondence and a couple of questions. Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Director, just run us through the changes.
Through the chair, Councillor Barnett, through the email correspondence, raised the query that some of the infrastructures and furniture and things have been omitted in some of the parks. So I've checked with the staff and I was advised that this community land management plan does not actually include all those park benches and all the infrastructure. So as a result, we decided to omit that particular column. Otherwise, if we were to include a park bench, we need to then that particular plan become obsolete. So that is a request for council to consider division of that. That information does not need to be as part of the land management.
Councillor Barnett.
I'm happy to move. We've given the explanations, and I guess I just saw there. I was looking for consistency of approach, so I think now we have it, and it seems to be common sense. Not to, because we could be having a park bench there, and then 2 years' time we might move it somewhere else or whatever happens, and then you've got to go back and do the whole thing, delegated authority, blah blah. Anyway, so I'm happy. I think that it's good that we do have a community land management plan, and I know that we are looking at how best we manage our land and our facilities and be on top of everything. So I think that dovetails perhaps also into our open space strategy, which is coming up next. So I'm happy to move it.
Okay, thank you. Second it. Councillor Standard, disrespect to it? No, thank you. Any further debate? Conclude debate. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item withdrawn was the open space strategy report on page 201. There is a revised recommendation there, and that has arisen from a couple of comments. Probably I confess mostly from myself, but I don't think this is quite ready yet. So there's been a significant amount of work done. So I think it's worth us acknowledging that there's progress, acknowledging the work that's been done, and to bring back a number of items to the workshop. In particular, the specific projects nominated for each part, just make sure we're happy with those directions. It's quite a body of work there. And I've asked the staff to do a lot more work on what that would cost and over what time frame, so that we can use that to inform our long-term financial plan, and then in order each annual business plan, because maybe we're not spending enough in our parks, so this plan should help inform the expenditure, not just the activity in parks. So that'll come to us, as you see in part 2, to a workshop. Any questions about that change at all? Right, so I'm happy to move it.
Yes, I'm very pleased that we're finally seeming to make some bigger traction on this, in this area. As we know from the report, we've been consistently underdone per hectare per person, and so I'm very pleased that we've got this, because I was going to mention that now we're coming back to workshop, so I'll just email some of my other suggestions further on, because I did see that there was opportunity with the Pooch Park at Cotton Street to link it with the Upper Torrens Link Reserve as an opportunity more for a fitness link, because we've got quite a steep area there, so instead of it just being glorifying our butterflies, which is important, and then having another Pooch Park proposal, I think we could also be looking at making it a bit more of a fitness workout area with a bit of signage about what we could be doing, staggering up and down there, which I would most probably be doing. And I would also be looking as an opportunity in all our parks and reserves to have fitness activities and suggestions for fitness activities. They can be simple, just such as a balance beam. We don't have to have a lot of all that very expensive, other workouts or type of stuff. I've seen quite a few examples whereby you can have much simpler ideas that, particularly with perhaps some of our seniors coming on, balance and preventing falls is very important. And also Devonport Terrace Bike Boulevard there, and coming up about our electrification of the railway possibilities. So I think some of this dovetails quite nicely what we're doing at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Evans.
A couple of things. It's really quite a good body of work, and we've been calling for an open space strategy for a couple of years now. It's really great to see it coming together, and this is really leaps and bounds from where we were not long ago. So I think credit to the staff and the team that pulled this together, because it's really coming along quite well. Certainly some opportunities for us to have a discussion through the workshop process. I'm looking forward to that. Also maybe some opportunities to get the community involved and understand that at the time we are looking to develop individual parks. That's something that does happen and happened quite well with the Rotary Reserve fairly recently. But I guess there's a question there as to how far we do look to engage our community in the open space strategy at this point. And that's something to perhaps have a chat about at the workshop. But certainly a lot of evidence-based research there as well, a lot of surveys done and a lot of information that's been compiled. So well done to the team. I did just have one quick question, which is maybe a question for Chris, just in terms of the website, so prospectplaces.com and what we're looking to scope with the website overall. Does that interrelate to what we're looking to do, or are they two separate?
Yeah, we've actually determined through the chair, we've actually determined that we have 7 independent websites, and the idea is that each one of those websites comes into our prospect website. So we won't actually dismiss the material that's here, we'll bring that in, but it won't actually have its own independent web address, but it will be part of our website.
So prospectplaces.com won't exist, it'll be part of Prospect Places.
However long the domain is registered for, it will still have it, but it won't be an advertised domain, it will be part of our overall website.
Okay.
Further comments? just quickly from the chair, I had a really good look at this because I've, like most of you here, been waiting for this for a long time and really looking for help with strategy of greenhouse parks. And I've made a number of suggestions about what I think are improvements to the document, particularly tying into our strategic plan because we've got some things we want to achieve in that convincing coming through strongly enough. We also suggested doing some overlays on particular types of uses. For instance, there's a nice diagram in there about the distribution of play across the city, and they're just green dots. So I've asked for that to be mapped in terms of walking distance to play. And when you do that, I think you'll see pretty quickly there are a couple of gaps. And I think those gaps would probably raise our interest in making that a priority to resolve. And the gaps are, the biggest gap is sort of back in this area here. There's no play equipment in this sort of zone. The Charles Kane investment might fix it, but think about Charles Kane a little bit north coming into Ward Road. There's nothing to play in the walk through there. And we also asked for an overlay on, say, kick and ball spaces. So whilst you lay up all the parks and do overlays and radiuses, it looks like the whole city's covered in opportunities. When you kick a ball, a lot of our parks just don't cut it. So do an overlay just on those sort of spaces and work out how far we can have to ride or walk to go and do that. And then the other uses, where would you take a dog? So we've got one dog park, but we have other parks that are fenced that don't say they're dog parks, but people use them that way. So how many of those are there? And is there a shortfall of a particular type of park like that? And then that will help us, I think, inform our priorities about where to spend some money. There's a few other suggestions too, but one of the key things in the report is the percentage of open space that we've got being low relative to other councils and low relative to what we benchmark. There's not really a clear process around how we resolve that. It's notionally, probably should buy something in this zone here, but we know what things cost. Really, we just bought something and we're selling something. We know what it's worth. We should be able to predict pretty accurately what those acquisitions would cost and have that in our mind as to how we fund it. We're serious about it, how we fund it, and how do we get it into our long-term financial plan so that it's, we don't have an opportunity that's going to cost us $1 million and we sort of think, we just can't do that. We should be really serious about it. The plan should help us understand it. And then, of course, we want to do all this stuff. What's it cost per project, per year, and over a 10 or 15-year cycle? So we can map all that out. This plan really helps us get much closer to that than we've ever been before, I think. Say that honestly. And then finally, as part of funding it, should we also consider where we've got an oversupply of a certain type of space or a space that we're not really using because it's just too small or too awkward, or there's a little park on Wilson Street that's a triangular block on a really strange intersection that it's really hard to use. And you just sort of think, we're getting value out of that and we would be better off using that money elsewhere to get better value. Don't know the answer, but I think the strategy should also tease us a little bit about shifting our asset around somehow in terms of selling and using the money to buy somewhere else. And I'd like to see a bit more around that. So I think the report is really excellent work and it's really shaping up to be a powerful tool. And the example I gave at the start today was, if we can get this right, have all the argy-bargy up front, then the staff got to just chew on this for the next 10 years and deliver it. And much like the footpath program was developed by our predecessors, maybe Christine was there, and I was part of some of the argument about it. But once it was set in train, nobody touched it because the principles were so hard to forward and the program was so strong in its structure that the staff went on and just delivered. And I think that's where you get to the park strategy, albeit the community consultation phases. Processes need to be thoroughly dealt with in the way the plan works. Yeah, I think it's shaping up here really good. Okay, any further debate? Right, Councillor Barnett, wish to sum up at all?
No, I think we should be having some very interesting workshop session on that.
Yes, I think it would. Yeah, exactly. Okay, that concludes the debate. So all those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item drawn, thank you, was the 19.8, the community engagement electrification of Railway Line 1 to Terrace. I've just taken the liberty of pulling that one out so that I can conclude it myself from the chair. And I really this item has come up due to a lot of anxiety from residents along Devonport Terrace, actually over a long period of time. And I think it wouldn't be right to say that we've ignored them. It wouldn't be right to say that we probably haven't had a really good plan about how to deal with some of the issues down there. It's a one-sided road. It's got a landscaping strip up against a terrible fence that Dipty own, and a rail corridor that's a pretty hostile place. It's something that people shouldn't be in, but fence would struggle to keep cats out of its moment. And as time has gone by, the structure of the landscape has broken down a bit. People say park on that verge. Of course, that's causing potholes, mud, all sorts of other stuff. It's just getting a little bit, I think, informal and not respectful of people's homes there. I think we do a much better job. But equally, I know there's some people down there who are doing some terrific work. And Kate Barrett, watching Kate, that's you, Kate Barrett, doing some great work around the train station down there, has for quite some time. And I think people like her and her others should have a chance to be involved in how Devonport Terrace can be shaped and how we go about maintaining it over a period of time. And thirdly, the state government have announced that they wish to electrify their northern line. The first section will be from the city to Dry Creek, because that's where the train farm or sheds are, and that's Albion. And when they electrify, they replace the fence with a 6-foot-high black chain mesh fence. And the fence needs work, and it really does. So if they're going to do that, it would be nice to have our work done in unison with that, and not birds they come along and wreck it over there, or vice versa. So we're in discussion with the department around, can we please have a discussion around that timing issue, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a few things coming together. I think it just behoves us to get our act together and let the local residents have a say how that can evolve over time, and get a nice little communication project going on, probably for a year or so. And so, okay, I'll move it. Is there a second? Councillor Barber, you should speak to it all.
Yes, I will, and unfortunately I didn't get the chance to move it because I had a few points on those lines myself, but I support what you're saying. I think it kind of fits in with, I don't know whether this is aiming too high, but it kind of fits in with the open space strategy. Whether we consider this the edge of our council area, butted up against the chain wire fence, and therefore what we need to do is the minimum, or whether we look upon it from a crowded point of view and work out how we could maximise the benefit, is up to us largely. If you think about that stretch of Devonport Terrace, it's in the next 5 years it will go from probably 50 or 60 houses from the end up to Cane Reserve, each with a couple of people in there, so maybe 100 people. So potentially 50 or 60 development sites with maybe 16 to 20 to 25 people. So the number of people who are going to be along there and looking for somewhere to get out of their fairly small environment and bring their lives out onto the street is going to be significant. So I'm assuming that when we think about what we might do with this space, we are projecting 5 years into the future, not how can we tie it up now. I think that there's heaps of opportunities to think creatively about how we might use that space. I think that the draft questionnaire maybe asking some leading questions. It doesn't really. It kind of sounds like we're going to end up with another nicely landscaped but not used space, which would be a pity. So whether the staff could consider opening up the opportunity for people to think broadly, and what I'd suggest there is doing a bit more research. The only example might be a good one, but are there other examples around the state or around the world where communities have activated that sort of hard-to-use land? Are there community gardens on there? Is there a fitness trail on there? Is there baton or bocce pits, or whatever you call them, along there? I think we've got to do whatever we can to make the most of that space, bring people out onto the street, get them engaging as a community. Support the idea, and hope we can make some ground on improving that stretch over the next few years.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder that the draft survey is actually based on a church relationship. The questions aren't really appropriate. Yes, I would probably be better to move it without that as part of it. Just an example of how we might go. Yeah. Councillor Barney.
Yes, I think it's been quite long neglected area. We've had a few of them around the city for quite some years, so I'm very pleased that we're putting the searchlight a bit more on Devonport Terrace. I think with the influx of new residents down there, without looking at the two main parks on there with the bicycle track, there's quite a lot that we can now all bring together, and hopefully we can persuade the governments. I think it's two, the Commonwealth and the SA government, isn't it, that have input into that. Yes. I think we can do far better than chain mesh fences. I've been looking at, I think I have sent some to council about opportunities for us to actually do some acoustic fencing that is also an artwork, and that we don't have to then look out at the horrible graffiti on the other side. That's been ongoing there for years. I don't mind graffiti art and all that, but that sort of takes the cake really, and it doesn't add anything to the community and what they have to look at. So very welcome this will be, and I'm very pleased that we'll be involving the community down there. So very happy to support this.
Thank you. Further debate? Councillor Stan.
It's interesting you say about putting up barriers. I think there's an opportunity for to open up prospective train travels. If we can create a vista that is interesting for commuters as well as people. I mean, it's a pretty mundane existence going back and forth on that same train line every day. It'd be nice if they had a patch of their trip was something interesting to look at as well as us looking out to them.
Any further debate? No? Back to me to sum up. Excellent debate. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Yes. Carried unanimously. Thank you. That concludes the reports for tonight. And the next item is the council diary. Starting off with an event called the King of the Cool, so presumably some of you will be there, selected members, presenting, not learning. Profit Eco Market, free games, art gallery openings, and citizenship ceremony on the 18th of September. I think we've captured all the council events and supported events. General business, are there any items for general business tonight? I think there's one. Councillor Evans. It's on the screen.
Just one change. Paragraph 5, interfacing. Could we change that to collaborating? Do I need to read this out?
You don't, not required to under our meeting procedures, but people don't. Bill, have you got this table at home, or is this the first time you've seen it?
What I might do is just speak to it and speak to the points, because if I read it verbatim, it might be a bit hard. The message might get lost. What this is about is, I guess, there is change happening in our city to do with development, and I've certainly been approached by a couple of residents, and I know, we all have over the time, just to have a chat about what are the opportunities to improve, I guess, the process that exists around developments when they're on site. And in particular, there's 5 components of this. So it's looking for council really to do a bit more homework and to come up with a couple of options of how we can make the process of developments being built easier for our community. And this has come about in a number of forms over the past few months, perhaps to a fuller extent now, and I guess just maybe to consolidate some of what's already been around. The first one, traffic and pedestrian management around building sites. So just looking to understand how that can be managed better, how the impact on traffic flows can be minimised, as well from a compliance perspective, making sure that what's meant to be built actually does get built, and what are the touch points and what are the abilities for us to be able to influence that process and pick up anything that's, say, not been built to spec early in the piece. Damage to council assets is a really interesting one, which is where everybody gets built, our assets get trashed in the process, be it trucks driving over footpaths and the like, that there is damage there, and what are our opportunities to mitigate or make better or encourage the developer to respond more effectively to damage that they cause to our assets. The interesting one as well is, and I'm sure we've all seen this around our city, which is where building infrastructure gets put in the way of our council assets, or it's put on our council assets. So for instance, a building that's being built to the boundary requires access to a footpath, or requires occupation of a footpath for a period of time. What are our processes involved in ensuring our community is adequately remunerated for the imposition of that, and also, to discourage longer than is required type occupation of footpaths and council facilities. Where builders occupy council space, that's the last one, and then collaborating with DIPTI. So the role of the private certifier is an interesting one, and one that I'm still learning lots about, but I know really we don't have too much of a say in it in council. So while we may approve a development, really the private certifiers are there to I guess, certify the building, and something that's largely beyond our remit. It's in the remit of the state government, but we're the ones that approve it. So at what point in time can we collaborate with the state government to achieve better outcomes of that process as a whole? So there's a few interesting points there. No doubt some of it is stuff that the team's already aware of and working towards. But I see this as a good way for us to get a report and get some information on options to tune up the process generally, and to look at how it can be improved moving forward. So that's what the motion is effectively seeking to achieve.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Lee, you just speak to it.
Not really. Councillor Evans has covered pretty much encompassed everything that it's about, but there's just a few things there that can take some angst out of the process of development going on in the city. I think something, something like remuneration improvements. That kind of might get them moving more quickly on developments, because if there's some sort of repayment to council on the use of our assets, then they might just hurry themselves up a little bit. But also the process through private certifiers as well. So it's not really a rubber stamping process that has caused with angst. Out there in our community, as you might all be aware from the emails you've been receiving, but it makes them more responsible as well. So I'm really quite excited about this motion going up, and really want to know about the process, fine-tuning the process, so it's much better for council in general and for our community.
Okay, thank you. Any debate? Councillor Stanley.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent motion. I think the other thing it does is encompasses larger developments that we have that might be a forceful development down Prospect Road through to a splitting of just two house blocks. And I can think of an example, and Councillor Harris would probably bring up this example if he was here, of Balfour Street, where two developers both work in the same split block. One is fixed up the footpath. The footpath is as it was when the development was started, and the other one's left a broken mess of pavers that are pretty much unsafe. So that's just 5 metres of pavers that need to be fixed, but the process of getting that done is almost impossible. So I think it's excellent.
Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I welcome this. So thank you, Councillor Evans. I think that although we like to think that we work together, we know that we need new buildings and development and all that sort of thing. But they are occupying our space, which is the common community space in footpaths and roads, and short of charging them rent for it, I think that we should be a bit more hard-nosed about it, where when things have gone wrong. I mentioned before, but I'm getting really sick to death of all piles of pavers that are left behind on the footpaths, all dotted all around our city, and it doesn't seem to be who owns them, like, for goodness sake. I really think, if they've got a pile of pavers that somehow they've dug up and put somebody's driveway in, well, there should be some better notification process. I don't blame our staff. They've got more than enough on their plate to do. There should be some process whereby these, whoever's done it says, up to council, send a, communication email up to council or something or other, and says we've got a pile of pavers that we've left behind. whether we want them or not, but it's our property, I guess. Yeah, so just a lot of all those little things that residents sort of notice, and just something else that adds to the thing when they've had to pay their rates. So if we can smooth it all out and try and get a better outcome, I think it's good.
Further debate? Councillor February.
Look, just to thank Councillor Evans, excuse me, thank Councillor Evans for his motion. Can I make a similar suggestion as I did earlier? I just think debating this in December is less useful than debating it in November. Take advice. I think this is going to raise a whole lot of other issues. Some good time and space to debate. I'd rather do that.
So suggesting 4 come.
Sorry.
3?
Oh, I get it.
Possible? Mover? Second to have? Secondly, we'll need to change 4 to 3. What is it, both? Doesn't change.
Thank you. And probably just to reiterate the point, I think a couple of people picked up on this, that often when we think of developments, we think of big things on main roads, but this is also small things on side streets, which is when people walk out of their house, they see that before they see what's going on in the neighbourhood. So I think, I know that was certainly the intent, but I think it's probably things of that scale. And there are lots of actually it comes to them.
Further debate? Back to Councillor Evans. Do you wish to sum up?
No.
Concludes debate. All those in favour? Yes, it's carried unanimously. Is there any further general business? Councillor Barney.
Yes, I wasn't actually quick enough to raise it in Council Diary, but it's sort of connected with mine and nature business. And that is that the Prospect Local History Group speaker is the 5th of October, not the 7th of September.
Oh, it's a day's wrong.
Yes. And it's only because I think the history group didn't pick up on this, and I've alerted them this, and so I've sent on that to Council Communications team through the Director to also do the Council.
We'll get that correct in the minutes, and on the wildly successful and up-to-date event calendar. And we'll be on there. Any further general business? Any general business of a urgent nature? There are no comprehensive items. Meeting closed.